Yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
Yeah.
Easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the cause for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the cause for
that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been
That's
doing.
right.
All right, my sister. It is so good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Timely Wisdom. I'm Roz Lewis. Leslie, thank you for joining us all the way from Delaware. So good to have you with us on today. Sharon Mitchell out of Flint, Michigan. So good to have you with us on today. Those of you who are coming in and joining us, please, please, please like, tag, and share. Let us know where you are listening. What city, where are you from? Make sure that you put that in for us on today. I'm going to get started. It has been snowing in DC now for the last 2 days. It's tapering off, but tonight they said it's supposed to be the coldest night in 5 years in DC. And so that even though the snow has stopped, then all the other things of delays and everything else with the ice and the black ice and all of those other things. And so it looks like the kids will have another day out of school. How are you, Wallace? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's cool here in, well, let's say cold here in Hot Atlanta. It was like, let's see, what it was like 13 degrees this morning, and supposed to be some bad weather coming our way tonight, late this afternoon and tonight. And I don't know if the students will be in school tomorrow or not. So yeah, we're experiencing some crazy weather as well. I've been talking to folk um, in Oklahoma, and they have been snowed in, low temperatures, cold, and some of the folks don't have heat or water. The same is going on in Louisiana. So, and it looked like there was like 3 or 4 inches of snow in Oxford, Mississippi. So this morning, so it's been, the cold is across the, moving from the southeast. They say Texas is crazy as well. So it's been going all the way up to you, Dr. Burns.
Yeah, when I got picked up from the airport on Sunday, I was told that in Milwaukee that the power had been out because the storm had already hit, as you know, the Midwest at that point, but
Mhm.
that power was out in that area, and they had been informed that it would be probably up to 48 hours before their power would be restored
Mhm.
in those areas. Hello, those of you who are coming in, let us know where you are, where you're listening from. And for those of you who are part of the D9, I see that Dr. Wallace hasn't bothered to say it to me today, but it's our Founders Day. It is the
Happy
Zayden's Day on
Founders
today.
Day. Happy
And so,
Founders Day.
yeah, thank you. All right. Thank you so very much. All right. Put a little, as they
I,
said in
I,
color,
I I don't
as they said
remember
in Color Purple, put a little respect on it.
well,
Okay.
wait a minute. I don't remember saying Happy Founders Day on yesterday. So
Okay, that
okay,
was yesterday,
right.
but we are today. We're
Uh,
putting those things
uh-huh,
behind. All
uh-huh.
right, we're looking forward and toward. All right, give me some respect today. All right,
Play
hello now.
nice, children.
Okay,
Play
just
nice.
be nice, be nice, be nice, be nice.
If you want respect, you have to give respect. That's all I
And I
got.
believe that I have. I have. I've recognized it when it was your founders. Hello. Okay, but that's just what people do. I think that is the system of oppression. That's why you got number 45. talking about what
I
he's going
heard
to do.
that
The
yesterday.
person who is the oppressor all of a sudden becomes the victim. All right, you become the victim. All I said was just say Happy Founders Day to me. But no, you had to go back to the Civil War and talk about the
No,
war you
yesterday
lost.
wasn't the Civil War. Yesterday, okay,
You had to,
that's
you had to do that. That
cry
battle
from
over. That
a
battle
long
is
cry
over.
from the Civil War, girl.
Thank
Pray
you, Marjorie.
Especially
Sister
since
Scott.
we
I
are
am
the
so
first.
glad that
Y'all,
there is
you
an
know,
AKA who
like
is
third or fourth,
listening with us on today, because here it is, your sister is not able just to say Happy Founders Day. Thank you, Madam AKA Marjorie Scott. All right.
I
All right.
just
God
said
bless
Happy
you.
Founders
Thank
Day.
you.
What's wrong
Thank
with
you.
you?
That's all. That's all I was saying. Just say Happy Founders Day. Okay. Dr. Wright, how you all doing in Kansas?
We are doing
Kansas
very
City.
well. It
Mhm.
is cold in Kansas City, just as it is in so many other places.
Mhm.
The weather doesn't really bother me. I mean, it's part of life. You just got to do what you got to do. So I do what I got to do. But my puppy is loving the snow. Every time I open the door, she just gets so excited.
Correction. That's a bear that you have. That is not a puppy. When you say puppy, people think small. Okay,
She's
what you have
she's
is a 6-foot animal.
She's
Okay.
sitting here and she's very sensitive. She only weighs 135 pounds, but
And-
she's really sensitive about people talking about her.
Just tell me where I lied. That's all.
She's gonna be special today, right? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. She's gonna be special today.
Wait a
It's
minute.
okay.
We're gonna
You
be
look good.
special. We have one of our viewing audience right here, and I saw that in the CNN report, and I didn't even bother to go and read the whole thing. But Nikki Haley, who did come in third, and who I was putting some portion of hope in the Republican Party for, made the statement that there is no racism in America. A woman,
Again,
first of all, a woman.
again.
Confused.
What's going on with these people?
No,
Like,
what's going on with the state of Iowa, period, that would make him their front runner? I mean, has the man not been very clear? Didn't they say when people show you who they really are, believe them?
And perhaps they are, because there's several in Iowa, and I listened to some of this about a week and a half ago, but they said that Trump really is the voice of God, that his policies line up with what God has said, and these are y'all's Christians who saying this.
They going
Well,
to hell.
I have to just share that I had a student that waited to the very last day of class in my online CPE program to say that Trump, African American male CME, said that Trump was the best president we ever had. I thought I would go through, and my other students thought we would go through the computer to
Oh,
choke.
I'd have failed him. I said, you just nixed every assignment you did. You just dumb it.
I was so upset that it just bothered the heck out of me. Why you wait till the last day, first of all, so we can't school you and give you some information and help you learn, give you some resources to read. Well, first part of the problem was he didn't want to read, so that.
Well, that's his base. That's a large portion of his base.
The other part of his base was he works with blue collar white males who is indoctrinating him on what they believe. Okay. So that was that. Okay. We have a lot of work to do.
That's the same way a lot of the slaves got caught too. So
and I'm just grateful that I was a part yesterday of a clergy event that I'm going to invite all of the clergy well, everyone on our call to check out Faiths United to Save Democracy. And it's a turnout Sunday. You can go back and look at the webinar yesterday about how we can be engaged in helping not only our community, but other communities of color register and vote. So that we got some work to do.
Mm.
We got some work to do for this year.
Dr. Wallace, I believe you have a wonderful guest that's waiting backstage for us because I realized that one of my buttons got pushed, and so before I get on my my little
Well, I'm so happy you recognize your trigger.
I'm very much aware and understand. I'm still getting through over PTSD of having lived in the state of Texas with Governor Abbott. So, right.
I get it. I'm still in the midst of PTSD here in Georgia. So the only ray of hope I have is Fannie Lewis, so Fannie Willis. So that's a ray of hope. But at any rate, thank you.
Hold on a second before you introduce our guest. For those of you who are just coming in, it is the founding day for Zeta Phi Beta Incorporated. Feel free to put in the chat.
We have as our guest,
all right,
Reverend Dr. Beverly Wallace, an ordained Lutheran clergywoman. She is a member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. I believe she is a lifelong Lutheran. She was the first Black Lutheran I met at the ITC. When I was at ITC, she hails from Brooklyn, New York. She holds several master's degrees and a PhD in family social science, marriage, and family therapy from the University of Minnesota. She's currently living in two places, Columbia, South Carolina, as well as Douglasville, Georgia. She has children and grandchildren, if I remember correct, seeing on her Facebook page, as she shares with us. She has been the facilitator, and we're going to talk about many of these areas of her expertise, including Black psychologists, emotional emancipation circles, community resilience model. She's got several things that she can help us as a healing spirit, to bring a healing spirit, especially as we talk today about the blues, the holiday blues, grief and the holiday blues. She hails as a womanist scholar in the area of pastoral care. She is a womanist theologian, and she has taught in both Minnesota, at Shaw, at the ITC, and she just recently returned, and I cannot say this word, I'll let her tell you, but she came back from Portugal and Brazil, looking at global African perspectives and experiences. So let us welcome today our guest, the none other, and she is from another sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. We're just so happy to have her with us. We sisters, we fuss and we argue, but yet we love each other, and it's all in love that we tease each other. I just had to cut
Dr. Burns.
I can't call her name right now. Trying to make us look at those Zetas today. But it's so wonderful to always be first. It's always easier to edit than it is to create. So we enjoy our time together. So welcome, Reverend Dr. Beverly Wallace, who people always get the two of us confused. He goes to my preaching engagements, and I'm trying to get to hers, because they often confuse us. So, but she's my namesake and my initial sake, and I love her dearly.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wallace, for inviting me here. I am loving this. I was in the backstage and just laughing my head off, thinking of listening to you and recognizing that what you're doing is healing work. It's already healing work. There's a book called Honey Hush. I don't know if you've seen that. It's about African American women and laughter and telling jokes, and that's part of the healing medicine that we use for our own healing.
Yeah.
So
We have to laugh and keep from crying because this world we live in, and as African American women, and Dr. Burns, I hope you got the link that I sent you about that I shared last week around.
Yes, I put it on our page.
Awesome.
Mhm.
The research that African American women have PTSD way more than any other group in America. So it was just astounding to me to see those statistics. But thank you, Dr. Burns, for sharing that with our audience.
Thank you for remembering to share it. Mm-hmm.
And this afternoon, my daughter, who is an educator there in Atlanta too, she just sent me a link to this article about suicide. What's happening, particularly in the academy and the theological education and higher education. What's happening to our sisters?
Mm-hmm. Just had one to commit suicide. Was she at Lincoln? I think I heard.
Yes, and that she attempted to talk to a supervisor about the racism and the sexism she was experiencing. And was it Liberty? What? Oh my goodness! I remember just seeing that on Sunday. Wow.
Yeah, and so the question is, what do we do with that? And that ties in with this topic about holiday blues. What happens after the holiday? What happens after you have all of these expectations? You're building up to the time of celebrating, and what happens when you're disappointed or it doesn't happen the way that you want? And so the time after the holidays oftentimes is a real critical time for us to do some healing work that's needed. My background is as trained marriage and family therapist, but also as the other Dr. Wallace is doing in her work. Years of clinical pastoral education. I decided not to do the CPE supervisory route because it was going to take me as long to do that as my PhD. And so the area of Black families was something that I was really interested in. And so that was beginning of my work.
You've done a lot of work in grief and loss,
yeah.
Especially in the African American community. Can you give us, I know this is not one of the questions that we ask, but by saying what you just said about holiday blues and what happens having recognized this brilliant African American woman who just committed suicide, give us some pointers or some things we need to look out for, and maybe some solutions that first, I know I always say therapy. We have to have therapy as one of the, just as African Americans in this country that experience so much oppression. We have to have some therapy, but can you give us some tidbits of how we can navigate these holiday blues?
Well, I think one of the things, and I'm grateful for your gathering here. You have your sisters, and so to have sisters, others who can hear you, who can listen to your stories, who's going to be there for you. And so making certain that you connect with someone or have someone connect with you, I think that's critical to ways of addressing it, because you're going to have some disappointments. You're going to have high expectations. And what happens is it's like a roller coaster of rides. And you get to the point, particularly after the holidays, when it's like, okay, where's everyone? I didn't get the gifts. The people that I was hoping to be with, they're not there. And so making and being intentional about connecting with someone I think, is the most important. And then having someone who can hear you, as Dr. E.T. Hari would say, having someone who can hear your truth and be open to that. I think that those are the two most important things.
Yeah. Ooh, you talk about what we expected for the holidays that didn't happen. I mean, just before Thanksgiving, our audience knows that I lost my sister very suddenly, and it has been. I talked to my other sister yesterday, and it's almost every day that I think of or I'm involved in something that reminds me of my sister, and that gut wrenching pain comes right back. So yeah, and having my therapy appointments, I have to. I haven't done the journaling that she suggested, but I have. My sister offered to me, say, Brenda, why don't we just send Aletha some texts? So it's been kind of healing to type out the text saying I missed you and this is what I did and why I thought about you today, and that has been very healing for me. Even though I didn't take the time to just write, and I bought a couple of journals to do journaling, but that's been a real quick fix for me in my healing process and my.
Right. Yeah. Remembering that which you've lost and recognizing that the loss was significant. Any loss is significant, and so to not minimize that which that experience has been. You talked about me moving, living in Atlanta and moving to Minnesota. Okay. In between that, I was in North Carolina. I moved from Atlanta in 2014. And to take care of my mother. I lost my mother, my father, my brother from the period of 2014 until 2022 doing caregiving. It is just now, 2 years later, that I'm just beginning the process of healing, because you're so busy. And oftentimes during the holiday, you get so busy with, making certain that you have the tree correct, direction, decorations, all that. And so it's that time after that where one's extremely vulnerable. And it may be that the holidays remind you of someone that you love, those experiences that you had as a kid growing up, those memories. And so to be able to be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself.
I've heard that more than one time, to give yourself some grace and be gentle.
Exactly.
With yourself. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. We had a few questions, particularly about some of the things you're involved with. Tell us first about Brazil and Portugal. What happened and what did you do?
Okay. Well, it's interesting. When my husband passed away, it's real interesting. My husband passed away at the same time that the book that I co-authored, African American Grief, came out. And so at his memorial service, I had a colleague of mine read a poem called She Lived. I'm going blank at the name of the poet, an African American woman. Dr. Peter Nash was the person who read the poem. About 3 years ago, he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And so he had been doing work on identity, Black identity in Sao Leopoldo, Brazil, at one of our Lutheran seminaries there. African American brother connecting with African and African diasporic sisters and brothers in Brazil. And so when he passed away, I connecting with one of his students, who started a program called Blackness in Church and Society, working with African Brazilian folks working with the new refugees who are coming from Haiti and from Venezuela, to help them to acclimate to Brazil, learning the language. Imagine going from French to Portuguese or from Spanish to Portuguese, and easier that way.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do it so that they can protect themselves, so they can know their rights as women, as African ascended women. And so the work that I'm doing is making that connections, continuing that relationship. In May, we're going to go back there. We're going to talk about health disparities and having a conference around health disparities. So that's one of the things we're doing. I connected also with Dr. Yolanda Norton, who is the creator of the Beyonce Mass. I don't know if you've heard of Beyonce Mass. And so she lives in Portugal. And so that's the work we're doing and she's also a womanist theologian, a biblical scholar. And so we've connected. I invited her to Brazil. And so we're making those connections internationally with the work of the healing work of Black women in Brazil, Portugal, here in the US. That's the work that I feel I'm called to do.
Ooh, that's a lot. I remember when your husband passed away. I think I was a student between 95 and 98, if I'm remembering correctly, that we all kind of he was a professor at the ITC.
Yeah.
And so it really kind of, it devastated us.
He was only 53 years old, and so it took me aback. I was doing a pre-doc fellowship at the time when he passed away, and I was getting ready, and it was right after Katrina. And so the work for my healing at the time was to take myself outside of myself and do the work. So I was on the coast of Mississippi for the Katrina recovery, doing pastoral care for those who were surviving, who were still living on the coast of Mississippi after Katrina.
That what a big grief that was. People losing everything. I had a house fire, and I remember after our home was rebuilt, I would go to the laundry room thinking I was going to take something off the shelf, and then remember, oh my God,
it's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. I don't have that anymore. So that's a piece of that reliving the grief.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How did you manage? I mean, your husband died suddenly. You're working on your doctoral work, and then I hear you say that you're also, though, in the midst of people who are victimized by Katrina, and then our country afterwards of what happened. So how did you manage to hold on to your own sense of sanity and being in the midst of this?
I probably was numb during that period of time. And I think that's what happens too. In the book, African American Grief, I interviewed several people from around the country, African American people who experience grief. And one of the things I mentioned it in the book is that we get so busy. We get so busy doing stuff. And so that's what I did, unfortunately, but it was typical. We're so busy doing stuff. It took, again, some time, maybe 2 years, when I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to do some self-care. And so that's when I came back to myself to do the things that I believe, that I needed to do for my own self. Seeing a therapist, definitely being around family, recreating family, doing all those things. Because there was a lot around my husband's death, including stepchildren and issues around all that craziness too.
So let me ask you this, and I know perhaps we're straying a bit from
Mhm.
what we invited you to come talk about.
Mhm.
Uh, but what were there any things in reflection? Are there any things that you noticed that Black women are expected to continue to do, whereas white women are kind of given the pass as you are dealing with this, and yeah, were there things that you noticed when you look back on in that time period?
Yeah, the support, okay, we're supposed to be able to handle everything, including the loss of a husband, including navigating systems of insurance and, and all of that. We were supposed to be able to handle it all.
Wow.
And do it with, hey, you're a strong Black woman, you got it, And I think there's a lot, and we do it I mean, sometimes we do it ourselves. You mentioned something about how we are complicit.
Mhm.
We're complicit in not in particular that giving space to grieve and say, hey, this hurts like hell, um, and so again, having a good therapist and a sister therapist who could understand what I was going through with all the family stuff, because there's family stuff that was involved in that too. Having someone, like I said, who can hold your truth. I mean, I can't say that over and over again. But also recognizing it's a process. It's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. When the world wants you to be okay right away, so that you can continue to uphold this role of being the strong Black woman for everybody.
Wow.
But see, white women don't have to live up to a myth.
Mm,
And I thank you for your book about destroying the strong Black woman myth, because it is a myth. We get
mhm,
tired. We have to find a space.
mhm,
Um, uh, Before we get to what Fannie Lou Hamer said, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Because if you get to that spot, you aren't functioning at your peak level.
mhm,
So it is important to pull away. I'll just share something that helped me. Uh, I had to, like you say, be busy. I had to leave my sister's memorial service, go straight to Oklahoma City for a whole week. What I did for me was not turn the television on in the evenings at all. Now, for an extrovert, that was painful.
mhm,
Um, but I knew that if I was going to begin the healing process from my sister's death, that I needed to sit in the grief, sit
mhm,
in the silence. As painful as it was, I think it helped me. I don't know if it'll help someone else, but being silent. We talked about journaling. Those are some skill sets that I think Black women don't often get an opportunity to just sit and be silent.
And so with that, both Dr. Wallace's and Black women having the opportunity to sit and be silent, I guess for me, I kind of go back to the question of expectation and how then I know for myself is that when I've experienced and when I was in my pastoral role and there was a member lost her husband, the brain just kicks in of I got to be the for one the thing I heard most often was, oh, I got to be strong for the family. I got and and at what point it become okay for the widow or the mother who just lost her child
Mhm.
to just sit in the chair and weep and not get up from the chair? At what point does 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 she have the opportunity to do that? And then I guess my second question is, what do we need to do as a circle of sisters before we even ask the larger society? What do we need to do as a circle of sisters to say and to be that kind of safe space for Black women to say to them, no, baby, you don't, no, you don't, no, just sit, just cry, just weep, just do nothing. How, what needs to
Can I
happen?
take that first, Dr. Wallace?
Okay.
Okay.
No, let's hear from our guests first. Wallace, let's hear from our guests.
That's fine, but I hear you. I hear you. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's okay at any moment, every moment. And we've got to give ourselves permission to do that. And we're going to have to help others. Like you said, we're going to have to help other sisters and brothers who, I remember when in my PhD program, we had to do this model of systems. And I remember when I was a chaplain at Emory University Hospital, there was this young woman who had lupus, and they used to call me the lupus chaplain. Many African-American women have lupus, and this particular young lady, 16 years old, said, I don't want to do what they want me to do. But the systems are, again, complicit, wanting to hold it with everything in place. The doctors want you to be strong. You have the nurses, the administration, all of that. Those systems have to be broken down. And what is it? Breaking the homeostasis of the systems where, and people don't like that, because you got to be strong, because that means that I don't have to be responsible, because you're going to be strong for me and everyone else. And so even with emotional, and so one of the tenets of emotional emancipation is we're going to have to defy the lie. Dr. Shaniqua Walker-Barnes, in her book, Too Heavy a Yoke, talks about just the burden of being strong. And remember, we did this conference together, and we talked about being strong Black women in recovery. And we're going to, and how do you do that? We have to practice that, and then and emancipate ourselves. Again, that's why the emotional emancipation from the lies that said, if you've got to be strong for everyone else, and you can't cry because that's a sign of weakness. A woman values tears, and so how then do we embrace that piece as well?
I think the piece that, thank you, Dr. Wallace. I think another part of what Dr. Burns is asking is, how do we help our sisters to be in that space? And what I tell my students is, you don't have anything to say. All you need to do is show up. The ministry of presence, and shut your mouth. Just
show up, shut up, and listen.
That's it. That is how, and to take that time to be with our sisters who are grieving, and let them know, I don't want you to say anything. I don't need you to say anything. Let us just sit and be. And like I said, as an extrovert, those of us that are extroverts, that is a very, very difficult to do. But you have to practice, and you have to learn that skill. So, and I say it's easy for introverts, but it may not be as easy for them as I think it is. It's difficult to just sit in silence for any period of time, because our head, just a silent retreat, it takes me 3 days before I stop thinking in a silent retreat.
I'm wondering too if there's, I'll put it this way, a generational gap. My daughter was in a situation recently, and she's early 40s. She has this circle of sister friends, and so she went to the basement of this past weekend. Went to the basement and stayed there, and they surrounded her so that she can talk through they can talk with each other about what was going on with each other. And what she said to me is that she was taught from us, the elders, that she had to handle everything by herself. And she recognized that, no, that's not working for her. And so how then do we, to answer the question or to even amplify the question, when do we, you talk about sororities, when do we engage our sorority sisters in being real with each other? That's why I was laughing at the beginning of stage, because you were being real with each other. And that's what it's going to take. Just constantly being real with one another about all the stuff that makes us crazy. Like this whole election cycle that making me crazy, all of that.
I
believe
appreciate that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Wright. I'm sorry.
I believe another part of that is how we respond as well.
Yes.
It's really important, as you both stated, that we learn how to be quiet and just hear them. But then as you go along, if you do respond, it's how we respond. One of the things when I was teaching CPE, I always told my students, never walk into a patient's room where there's a loss and say, I know how you feel. Because you really don't.
You don't
know how they feel. You don't know what that relationship was like. And so it's really kind of unfair to go in and say, I know exactly how you feel, or to make it a one-upper situation. Because, and then the other thing is to be okay with saying, wow, I really don't know what to say right now. I really don't know what to say. However, I'm here and I hear you. And I'm going to love you through this.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that I've heard so many times is, as adults, we often say, what you need to do is this. That what you need to do becomes demeaning because now you've taken away my power. You're talking to me like I can't make a decision. So a better way, find out what's a better way to state what you need to say to them. If it were me, I may do it this way. Now, you'll figure it out. But in reality, they will figure it out. They'll figure out that possibly you have the right answer, but at least you didn't take their power. They're already feeling powerless. Now you didn't just totally disarm them.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's really good, and thank you, Dr. Wright. In that when you said that, I know how you feel. I remember I lost both of my parents by the time I was 18. Both of my parents were deceased, and one of the things that made me the angriest was people walking up to me though and saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Now that made me angry because I had been raised that you say sorry for something that you did and that you regret that you did, that you're owning responsibility for something that you did. And for me, I was like, it made me, what are you sorry about? What could you have done differently, right, to have kept my parents here? And I think that the language that people often use in times of, especially, I'm getting back to Black women, is that there's language that we have accepted as being okay, that we have welcomed and we have accepted as that this is proper and okay. But what we are doing as sisters to sisters, and again, I don't even want to talk about the brothers and the white folk. I'm talking about sisters to sisters. That what we've done is that we, instead of helping the other, is that we're actually piling on more bricks onto each other's shoulders, and not helping the other really get to a place of being healthy in a holistic kind of way. And unfortunately, on top of that, we couch it in a whole bunch of God language. And so now you're already dealing with your humanness. Now you throwing the God language on top of me, which and and wherever you are in this, you're trying to work through what you're trying to work through, but we don't really give each other a way out or a healthy place just to be and to deal with our humanity.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because when you say we give them that God language, we have been taught that that's what's appropriate. And you got to bring God into this, and make sure they know about God. Make sure. Well, guess what? I had a young lady I was counseling, and she just kept making the same mistakes over and over. And so I said, what about 11 o'clock at night sounds like Bible study to you? Or that I should just drop by when you're a single woman, he's a single man. And so I said, it's okay. And she looked at me and she said, what do you mean it's okay? I said, it's a decision that you've made. It's a decision that you've made. And she kept sitting there. I said, obviously you've enjoyed it. And so, this is what you're doing, then so be it. She was ready for me to go into, God doesn't like that, and you're gonna go to hell, and you're gonna do that. That's not the point. Because see, I'm coming home to a fine red bone man. So to sit up and tell you it's not okay for you to keep open the door for this nut that keeps stopping by your house, I can't identify really, but I can help you process. I can help you come through that and make a better decision.
I think too, Dr. Wright, and to my doctor sisters here, one of the things that we must do is to
you didn't come to the must language. Go ahead.
We have got to erase the cliches that we give people around grief and loss. Oh, God needed a flower. Oh, it's going to take, you ought to be through with this by now. We've got to erase those cliches from our vocabulary and allow people to just be, and allow the person to discern based on their narrative what's best for them. We talk about, if I were you, I would do this. No. What is your narrative tell you? What does your experience tell you? How have you managed these kinds of situations, even if it wasn't the exact situation? How have you processed them, stuff before you met me? You have lived. So you didn't just start living when you met the preacher, the teacher. You have a life that you can recall. Where are your successes? Where did you find success for yourself, and not put on to others our stuff? And that's the piece that, I think the cliches we got to get rid of.
Who gives us permission, or who's there for us to ask those questions, to answer those questions with? I mean, we're so busy living or trying to live. When do we slow down enough to and be in the company with someone to process those questions that you're asking? And I think that's the piece that we've got to figure out. How do we live this life in a way that is not predicated on we've got to do this, we've got to do that, when do we slow down to think about ourselves and all of the many emotions that we have, especially when there's, and so we can talk about grief. There's a lot of kinds of losses, the loss of relationships, the loss of the ability to move, that especially when you're getting older, it's like, I'm not able to do the things that I used to. The loss of dreams. When do you? And I'm hoping that Timely Wisdom is doing that, and you giving space to an opportunity for people to begin the process of engaging in those conversations. That's what's needed. What you're doing is what's needed to create those spaces where people can do the healing work of being free and being free.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think we do. While we have a lot of shenanigans and laughter, we allow people to ask the questions that they want to ask. If we can answer them, we do. If we can't, we say, it's okay not to know. Um, but between somehow we can get back with them. One of the things that I couldn't come right off the top of my head last week with the article, and I said, okay, I'll send it to Burns, and Burns can please upload it. So it takes, we have to be committed to loving ourselves, because if we don't love ourselves, we cannot really love anybody else. And a part of loving ourselves is taking time, the time we need for ourselves. If it's running, if it's reading a book, if it's biking, if it's even watching television, whatever it is that gives you that slow down time, the quietness, the silence, whatever you need for you. We can't tell you what's best for you. You have to discern what's best for you.
One of our viewers, Dr. Aminata Dayiri, says, I agree, having found this space is definitely what I needed. And if I don't know if you know the background on this, but Dr. Burns brought us all together during a very critical time. And we started out really just having fun. And now we're having fun. It was necessary and so important. And there are so many women that they're out there and they're saying, just hear my voice. So I'm gonna leave you with this. I am president and CEO of my own fan club, and I'm probably going up to dues next week. So if you're going to join, you need to join today.
Great. And I keep going back to my daughter because it's real interesting. New Year's Eve, there was a crisis. She had a crisis, and the way she talked about the crisis to her two young children, my two grandchildren, is she asked them. One's name is Aria, who's going to be 5 on Thursday, and then Mr. AJ Tickle. I'm born on April Fool's Day, and their last name is Tickle, right? And that's my resource. So whenever I get down, I think about them, the two of them. But she was going through a crisis, and so she asked the question of them: when you're not well, who takes care of you? So Miss Aria said, Mommy. Mr. AJ Tickle said, Nana, that's me, right? And so she said, well, I'm not doing well, and so I need to go to my mommy so that she can help take care of me. And so she's come home to be with me so that so she can do some healing work. And in that process, we're doing some healing work as well. But one of the things she asked for, she said, I need to see my aunties. Wouldn't it be great if there was a circle of seasoned, I'll use the word seasoned, and she used another term, I can't remember, seasoned women with someone of her generation, so that we can start having those conversations, so that we can all do the healing work together. And I think that's a powerful way of something that we can do, so that, yes, we have to do our own healing work, but we have a generation, and my Miss Aria Tickle, who's going to be 5, that generation too, that if we don't do the work and if we don't communicate that with the next generation and the generation of that, the cycle's not going to be broken.
It's not going to be broken.
Wow. And we've got to work it.
Wow. Dr. Wallace, Dr. Beverly Wallace, we have about 4 minutes left, and I know we didn't get any of the questions. Yeah, but what are some things that you want to make sure that are left with this viewing audience? I do think that you said that you had a book, and do want to put that in the chat so people can be able to find that resource, and anything else you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, well, the book it was a co-authored book with when I was doing my PhD, and it was just edited as a legacy classic series through Umbrella Press called African American Grief. And it's the stories of men and women talking about what does it mean to grieve, and some of them tell their own stories, and so it's a powerful book of narratives. So I think it's a good book to so that you can hear the stories of other people. What else would I like for you? Well, I just appreciate being here with you, sisters. I see a lot of doctors that were making notes or putting messages on there. And the fact that you're doing this work, not only for others, but you're doing it for yourselves. That's what I would like to say. I'm currently in a new position, lifelong learning at Luther Theological Seminary. I chose in Columbia, South Carolina, and I chose this for several reasons. One, I needed something to do. But secondly, I chose not to go back into a community that was not life-giving for myself. And so it's costly, but I believe it's worth the freedom to be creative and having learning outside of the academy, so to speak. So I'm looking forward to doing some more work. Dr. Jacqueline Grant, who is one of the renowned women's theologians, she is also here in Columbia, South Carolina, along with Dr. Stephanie Mitchum, who is the author of Introducing Women's Theology. And so we're doing some collaborative work. So you'll be hearing more about the healing work from a womanist perspective that we're going to be offering.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for being with us. Hang around backstage for us, if you would, please. Viewing audience, if you've been blessed by our guest on today, please, please, please let her know. She can see it in the chat. And we thank you for being with us on this day. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. She can read it. And my sisters, God bless you. And same time next week.
Love you.